You're listening to Contesting Wrestling, Minisode 47, in which we are reflecting on the episodes that came out this week.
Yeah, including episode 45, in which we had a very interesting guest, Mr.
Right.
Francis Wright. Right, indeed. But he's not right.
He's not right about things.
He's wrong.
He's got his ideas, I think, and
right
we listened to
Yeah.
we listened to him. I think Evan, you agreed with him more than I think some people do about certain things.
It's a real. I will say this. It does make me think about how, and this is a fun place where wrestling and the real world intersect in ways that are fascinating and horrifying. Is that I do often think that conspiracy theories, especially the history of conspiracy theories in America, is really something that is a symptom of what happens when you look at the power dynamics in play in our society, but you are culturally conditioned to not criticize our economic structure. And so
Yeah.
I generally I think that Francis arrives at many of his conclusions the same way that people who are super into QAnon arrive at their conclusions, is
Right.
because they see that something's wrong, and they are basically like they cannot look at it through the lens of they can't look at it through the lens of capital, they can't look at it through the lens of class structure, they can't look at it through the lens of them being exploited labor, because those things are considered un-American. And so what you have left after that is to venture into the realm of crazy bullshit that at least strings together into a coherent narrative.
Right. I mean, for instance, besides police brutality and racism, much of the current protest movement is about economics, is about, people incredibly frustrated that their votes and everything else they try to do to better their situation in the world, to elect officials that will enact policies that work in their favor, just doesn't work anymore. And if you don't realize that, if you can't understand any of that, then sure, the only explanation is that George Soros must be paying them to protest. I actually agreed with some of the things that Mr. Wright, as it were, said, but he was so antagonistic towards me.
That is true.
It was hard to talk to him.
I have had people accost me on the streets, to sign up to vote, which I have, of course, signed up to vote, or to vote for a certain candidate that get really antagonistic. And it's only because I'll talk back to them if I have the time. I'll just engage them in debate, and they're not ready for that. And I had somebody who was really telling me to vote for Nader in 2008, which I was a lot more receptive to years previously. And I was like, no, I'm not going to vote for Nader in 2008. And I was just going to keep walking, and he had a clipboard or something, to which he started shouting at me that the two-party system had brainwashed me because my parents had indoctrinated me into the Democratic-Republican system, to which I stopped. And I started explaining to him who my parents were and what they did most of before my life, which was go around the world and attempt to spread anarchy, because they didn't even want to vote because the system was so broken, which he was not expecting. So eventually I got him to start screaming at me, and I just calmly said to him, "Are you still trying to get me to vote for your guy?" And he didn't know what to say. I don't know. I could have just kept walking, but I did. I kept walking so many times. I just didn't this time.
To be fair, I voted for Nader in 2004, the first year I was actually eligible to vote in a presidential election. I had wanted to vote for Nader in 96.
Yeah.
Now, 2004 and 2008, especially 2004, would have been a great year for Nader to make his big push as the third party. 2000 was not the right year for that.
As it turns out, no. There are multiple resources everybody can look up regarding, presidential election history. It's not exactly the podcast we're running, but we'll talk about it if we feel like it. We're all interested in it.
I would say that that this election most resembles 2004 as elections in previous history goes. And that doesn't bode well.
No, that's not good at all.
We'll see what's
not
going
at all.
We'll see what's
happening.
A little more about the Wright, the Francis Wright episode. The wrong.
Francis Wrong.
Yeah, that's what I'm going to call him from now on, since he insisted on calling me government spy drone.
Yeah, also,
spy drone.
Let's be clear about something.
Time.
Even in the worst case scenario where you have been built by the government for the purposes of espionage, you're clearly an advanced AI. Like, you're not a drone. Yeah, okay. Nobody is piloting you.
I appreciate that.
You are clearly, at the very least, an android of some sort. Okay.
But anyway, so the rapper that he talked about, Ice JJ Fish, is real. I looked it up.
Oh, yeah.
I haven't listened to him yet. Yeah, okay. Is it any good?
You should listen to him.
All right, I'll listen to him.
He not in musical style, but the first guy that comes to mind when I hear him is Wesley Willis.
Oh, okay. I love Wesley Willis.
Oh, Wesley Willis was a very creative artist in his way.
Listeners might not have realized that Francis spoke to us through a megaphone at one point in the episode.
I think you could hear it.
Which was rather jarring. Perhaps. I mean, his audio was a little distorted the whole time. So
he had to get you to stop interrupting him.
Right. Exactly.
That was
he was not left with many options for how to get our attention. Yeah.
No, he was very effective.
I would also be remiss if I didn't mention someone I know who is also an independent wrestler who also has a brand of conspiratorial kind of thinking, Toasty Tom of House of Glory fame to some degree. He's a really interesting character in a lot of ways. The conspiracy angle is just one aspect of his character, but needed to give Toasty Tom a shout out. I would love to hear a conversation between Francis and Tom. That would be interesting.
Maybe we can make that happen.
Is his conspiratorial stuff based around, like, where does the bread go? Because you put the bread in, and then toast comes out.
He's toasty.
And, like, what is the government hiding from us inside that toaster?
I mean, he may have had that thought, given that the toasty refers to his weed smoking.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Okay.
And he also rode a skateboard to the ring before Darby Allin or any of that stuff. So, anyway, that's Tom. One other thing about last Minisode. I know this should be reserved for a microsode, but we don't do that.
I'll allow it.
I posted a picture for the Minisode because we talked about Ron Simmons in ECW. This great picture of him and Too Cold Scorpio in ECW. And we didn't talk about the fact that Simmons and Too Cold Scorpio actually teamed quite extensively, first in WCW and then in ECW. And they were an interesting kind of power and finesse combo. So maybe we'll watch some of that stuff down the line. I wouldn't mind doing a Scorpio episode at some point.
Yeah. Scorpio is very influential. He didn't become as big of a star as maybe his potential would allow, but he was very influential. He had some really cool matches. He innovated some really cool moves. Watching Scorpio matches now, it's like you think, oh, they did that back then? It's like, well, Scorpio did that back then. I don't know what you were doing back then.
He really pioneered the big penis style of wrestling.
Yes.
Which is influential in its own right.
If the rumors are to be true, yes.
We've had, the penis wrestling thing took a dark turn recently. So.
Oh, right. That guy.
So, okay, we watched the match for this episode.
Yes.
We watched the match for this episode. Pretty much the end of this feud, the first real wrestling feud that Evan has followed closely. Which is cool.
I wanted to ask you how this might be too large of a question, but how, as wrestling storylines go, how do you guys rate this one?
Let's say it was good. It did what it was supposed to do. It got Orange Cassidy over. He's a bigger star now than he was at the beginning of all this. Jericho got to do his act, work with a new guy, put another notch on his illustrious career. The matches were fun, and they were different from each other. I wouldn't say it was like an all-time classic feud. You know,
Yeah.
15 years from now, I'll remember it and be like, oh, it's when Orange Cassidy got over. But I won't be like, you've got to see this because it was good.
Yeah, I agree with that. It was good. I think it would have benefited a lot from having real crowds.
Sure.
Oh, yeah. Giant crowds screaming that they wanted Orange to be their guy would have helped.
Right. Yeah, even in this match, and we're talking about the Orange Cassidy, Chris Jericho, Mimosa Mayhem match from AEW All Out 2020 that just happened about a week ago.
Now, I ask because I could clearly tell how my investment in the storyline up until now was affecting my investment in the match. Definitely, and just the way that I was seeing the match, the way I was interpreting the match, it really felt like, I could tell what a difference it made. Not just watching this in a vacuum, watching it like with the knowledge of everything that had happened and having followed it myself.
I mean, also to begin with, why it's a Mimosa Mayhem match.
Yes.
Which is, for the listeners who don't know, there are these vats of orange liquid on either side of the ring, which are supposed to be mimosa because Jericho is known for his brand of champagne, the bubbly, and Orange Cassidy, of course, orange juice. So the way to win, you can win the match either by pinfall submission or throwing your opponent into the vat. It would have been incredibly disappointing if the match had ended without someone falling into the vat.
Just inside cradle, 1, 2, 3, everyone go to the back.
I thought they did a really good job of, teasing people going into the vat, getting dipped in it. Like Orange Cassidy's head gets dipped in it, so his face and his hair are all full of mimosa.
Jericho does a couple great, just sort of walking past it.
So
Yeah.
Jericho
I'm just saying, Jericho had all the trappings of a silent movie film in this one, and it shows. And wrestlers should watch some silent movies. We've said that before on this podcast. It helps.
Well, actually, Jericho's inspiration for this match, as he said on his podcast, was FMW, the hardcore deathmatch Japanese promotion from the 90s. Because he watched all these matches where, it's like electrified barbed wire explosions. But he got all the drama for the match from seeing people teetering on the edge of falling into the barbed wire and explosions, and they just did that same thing except with the mimosa, but put the same fear and trepidation into it.
Now
it just goes to show you don't need the barbed wire.
Right.
Now there were a couple things I noticed about Jericho here that I couldn't tell. Did he seem tired to you?
Less so than the last match they had. I thought he was very sluggish in the last match.
Yeah, because he wasn't like he was fucking up like in the last one that we watched, but he seemed, and I genuinely couldn't tell if it was part of the story of the match. Because one thing I noticed right away is, well, maybe not right away, but within a few minutes, he's not talking shit during this match like he normally does. He's not as vocal. He is a lot quieter. He is a lot more, he's concentrating on this harder, and I genuinely could not tell how much of it was his character and how much of it was, there were a few times where I looked at him and I was like, you look tired, man.
There's probably two things in there. One, he's trying to keep his breath, definitely, because he doesn't want to look like he did in the last match. And two, given the story of the match, Cassidy beat him last time. He's got to be serious and focused this time. He can't fuck around.
He's in there with a cardio machine like Orange Cassidy. He needs to keep up. He doesn't want to wrestle if he can't keep up. He doesn't want to take the in-shape young guys and say, hey, could you go a little slower for old Chris Jericho? He'd rather retire. And if he's starting to lose a step, we may see him retire sooner than later, because I don't think he's going to hang on way too long. He might hang on a little too long, but he has stuff to accomplish in AEW, not necessarily even for his own career, but for the careers of everybody around him, and we're starting to see that with stuff like this feud.
Because he does, he's still, don't get me wrong, dude's still in, great shape. And also, shredded does not necessarily equal healthy. Being in, perfect shape does not by any means mean you're a great endurance athlete or anything like that. That said, his body looks a lot more like my body than it did even like 6 months to a year ago in a way that's sort of accessible. And I'm like, cool, yeah, Jericho's out there representing dudes who look like this.
But also, given COVID, they haven't been able to train the way that they normally do. Also, that's a big part of it. I really like the structure of this match, and they're doing this more often with Orange Cassidy. They kind of did it with the Angelico match this week on Dynamite as well, where they don't let him do his shtick at the beginning at all. Jericho just hits him with the co-breaker, and he kicks out, and that's helpful because it keeps the shtick from getting stale. Then when we do, if we ever, when we will see like flashes of it down the line, it'll be really exciting and satisfying for the fans. And it's just the match is all heat pretty much. Jericho just jumps him from the beginning and works him over the whole time. And, here's where like the crowd, there was a near fall towards the end of the match that, should have been a huge pop. And they have like, I think 25% capacity now at Daly's Place. They have real fans there, but still it just doesn't have the kind of explosive quality that you have when you have a massive crowd.
Well, yeah, now it sounds like a giant open air building that's poorly attended.
Right.
Yeah. And keep in mind, it is an open air building. So you say, does Chris Jericho look tired? They're outside in Florida.
Oh, God. Nobody
it was
should
like
be doing
90
that.
degrees and super humid when they were doing this. So that caused a lot of problems. The announce team mentioned it a few times. They were kind of salty in their suits sitting there for 3 hours. For 5 hours doing this show, including the pre-show.
That's
and
awful.
it was an uncomfortable show to wrestle in, I'm sure. And it was not AEW's best show top to bottom, and everybody knows it.
I think
no, this was probably the best match of the night, which you might expect, but it could have been really silly, and I think they did a good job of sort of playing it straight, not making it funny and making it very serious. There's little moments like Cassidy getting Jericho in the face with the mimosa to break the walls of Jericho and stuff like that, which are callbacks to his character. But no, there was no joking around at all, and that made the match work.
And they've been. A big part of this arc has been confirming Cassidy's character and developing his character so as to make him more understandable to a wide audience. And because he's sort of a Jekyll and Hyde kind of dude, he is now in full Mr. Hyde form, and they have to establish what that looks like. So part of it is he's not doing his shtick because we don't want it to get old. But part of it also really seems like we need to establish what fully inflamed Cassidy is like, and can he be like that for a whole match?
A Cassidy who has been bubbly boarded. I don't know if you caught that.
Oh yeah, I saw the clip of that, which looks very unpleasant.
This is what I've said several times about Orange Cassidy, and it shines through here. So many people with wacky gimmicks that have a lot of shtick can't deliver when it comes time to do the serious wrestling and deliver this kind of match, and he can. And everybody who knows him knows that he can, and Jericho knows that he can, and that's why they entrusted him with this kind of spot. When there's a match that's almost no shtick, he's still Orange Cassidy the whole time, and people are still with him the whole time. He does, yeah.
And they did a really good job resolving this program between the two, having Orange Cassidy win the rubber match, not by pinning or submitting Jericho, but by knocking him into the bubbly. So that leaves it open for them to fight again down the line, but this was like a satisfying conclusion. And the finish, he hits him with the two jump punches, as you have referred to them in the past.
They're great when he does them.
Right. And that's such a great fuck you to the WWE. Like, you've tried to get Roman Reigns over with this shit for years and years and years. Well, guess what? We got the guy with fucking his hands in his pockets. Yeah. We got the fucking, what they're brilliantly calling the orange punch.
Oh, it's so good.
The orange punch, yes.
So good. He did it, and I was like, yes, this is satisfying. And I don't know why.
Yeah. It's all, I know you hate context, But it's all context.
I'm willing
in
to be
wrestling.
open to context for Orange Cassidy.
Right.
I'm willing to make that sacrifice.
Anyway, so it was a good program between them. You're right, and it was a good conclusion that we'll leave it open if they want to do something else. I like how Jericho sold getting tossed into the vat like he was dead. Like that was the thing that knocked him out, and then he just laid there floating for a while,
And
thoroughly vanquished.
Right. On Dynamite this week, he's complaining about how his like tights smell more like orange every day and shit like that.
Yeah, he's gonna need a new program soon.
Well, yeah, well, he and Swagger Hagar, I think, are entering the tag team arena.
Okay.
That's what they're doing next.
Okay. There you go.
All right. Any other thoughts on this, Evan, Doc?
Nope.
I
Looking
think we're good.
Looking forward to the next installment.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to seeing what they do with Cassidy from here.
Yeah.
You know, like they've done the program. They showed that he can really work on a top level. They had him have this match with Angelico this week on Dynamite, which I thought was okay. It was a little too short. There wasn't really enough heat to it. You know, we'll see what happens when the crowd returns in full as well.
Yeah, like I'm not, I'm just an observer here, but I don't see an obvious immediate next feud for Cassidy, and I think in the context of AEW, that's okay. He can go back to being best friend's friend, maybe appear in their feud and be a supporting character until there's another program for him. Right. And he can, and now he's leveled up and he can just hold on to that. You don't always need to be in a blood feud with somebody. That's how you burn out the crowd.
Yeah, the worst thing they can do is overexpose him at this point. And just because
agreed.
they have kind of fully exposed him now doesn't mean that they have to keep going with that. No, they can pull him back.
It feels like it would be smart to have him, like become a Spice again and like show up a couple times in a cool way, and then bring him back for something.
Also,
bigger.
now that he's gotten his vengeance, he can chill out again.
Right. That's what he really wants to do.
Jekyll. Yeah, right.
Alrighty, listeners, this has been Contesting Wrestling. Get ready for Monday when we return to a favorite
the
subject.
619.
Yes. When we get part 2 of our Rey Mysterio series. Part 3, if you're a premium listener, which, by the way, if you like what we do and you like these episodes, we put out a whole extra one every week for $5 a month at patreon.com/contestingwrestling. And you should check it out. You should follow us on Twitter @ContestingW. Let us know what you think, if there's anything we should cover, if you have any feedback, positive or negative. If it's negative, we're not going to listen. That's fine. But if it's
we do what we want.
Yeah, exactly. But you can put it out there if you want. It's all engagement. It's all engagement of content. That's all everything is now. Anyway, this is getting off the rails. What's important is that this has been Contesting Wrestling, and that we love you.